So here's what I have in mind for today, and that is simply this: are measurement-oriented reviews useful to audiophiles? That's it. Now, before I get into it, I'm just going to say right up front that this is not intended as an attack on measurement-oriented reviewers. It's not. I mean, some of these people are my friends. We're all in this together. We're all part of the audio community. So no, don't take it personally. Not at all. This is just to, well, basically to state my position, where I'm coming from as a 100% subjective reviewer. But you know, this is something we've been batting back and forth for decades, it seems, like the objective versus subjective story. The storyline has continued forever. And I just wanted to lay it out just to be clear about what's going on, what's going down with the objective, subjective case. That's what I'm going to do. And as I've been doing lately, to deviate one more time, at the end of today's episode, I will highlight an Audiophiliac viewer system of the day. So hang out to the end to see that neat little system. Please do. But as for the subjective part of this story, you know, I do reviews that I have in print and now on YouTube that are subjective. I give you my opinion of the product at the time that I did the review. I am proudly a subjective reviewer. I give my opinion. That's it. That's all I have to give. And it's based on my listening sessions and my experiences with the product and my years of experience doing this for a living. And that's what I tell you about in these reviews. And based on the feedback that I get from the readers of my reviews and the viewers of my reviews, that I think I'm doing it right. I think I am. And I think, well, I think I would have stopped doing it long ago if people were telling the people that I work for that Gutenberg was doing it all wrong and what he said was completely misleading, and I would have been out of a job a long time ago. But luckily, that didn't happen. So I think I'm okay. I think I'm okay. So the thing about measurements is that they're satisfying in a way that they're, well, objective, right? They're not somebody's opinion. They're cold, hard facts. A measures better than B, done. We're you know, that's all there is. That's all she wrote. A measures better than B and is therefore better. But here's the thing. Let's say the measurement-oriented reviewer measures product A and says product A is one of the best measuring products ever in its category, right? And product B is average, just an average, okay, decent enough product. Not bad, just average. And the reader or viewer of this review happens to own product B. And he says, you know, I'm going to rush out and buy product A because it measures in every way better than the thing that I own, right? So they go out and they buy product A, and one of two things happens, right? They either say, oh my God, this thing sounds so much better. I'm so glad the reviewer pointed that out. Or they get it and they go, well, I don't know, it sounds different, but I kind of like product B. I just like it. It sounds better to me. It could go either way. And that's the way it rolls, you know, because if you throw me into the equation and I also reviewed product A, and I like, let's say I like product A, and I wrote or did a video review and said product A is also really good, and the same guy buys it and says, yeah, Gutenberg liked it. The same result could happen. Yeah, Gutenberg nailed it. It's really good. Or Gutenberg is completely wrong. It's not that great. So whether the objective reviewer says this is really good because the numbers say so, or Steve reviews it because he feels that it's good, or you know, whatever, it does. Either way does not guarantee that the reader or the viewer of the review will agree. Because it is a matter of taste. People do not buy audio equipment to measure. The better measuring product has nothing to do with whether or not they will like it. That's the whole premise of today's rant, is we don't buy things to put tones through them. Or it's just, the premise of measuring audio to determine sound quality is just flawed at its base. Now, of course, measuring products while they're being designed to guide the engineers through the design process, perfect. I don't have any problem with that. But using measurements as a reviewer tool makes zero sense to me. Okay, you want to play gotcha with the designer and say, oh, look, there's this problem that we uncovered, that the designer was such a fool, didn't catch this problem, this distortion, this ringing, this noise or something. What an idiot. I'm such a smart reviewer. I'm way better than the designer because I caught this thing that they missed. Come on, man, that's not really true. As a matter of fact, the problem with the people doing the measurement, the reviewers doing the measurement, and I'm not singling out anybody here now, is what skills do they have in terms of measuring products? It's not something you just buy a program and a microphone and stick it in front of a speaker. It takes experience to interpret measurements. It's not something you just read a book or something and do it and know what the hell you're doing. I've talked to people who measure for a living. It's a skill that takes a long time to develop. So, yeah, and how you place, if it's a speaker, how you place the microphone has a huge effect on the measurement that you will get. Everything matters when it comes to interpreting the measurement that you get and understanding it. So please, I mean, some dope with a measurement program is smarter than the engineer. Now, of course, I'm not saying that that's not possible. I'm saying, of course, some skilled reviewer could be smarter than the engineer. I'm just saying the chances are, assuming it's a reputable company or a company that's been around for a long time, probably not. Probably the people that design the product probably had more years of experience and know more about the products than the dope at the website or the magazine or the whatever. You know what? Am I wrong? Am I missing something here? I know I've said some of this before, so pardon me. But you know, it's interesting that even at the extreme high end, there's no convergence of sound. It's not like designers are moving closer and closer to perfection, right? That MBL speakers and avant-garde acoustic speakers and Wilson speakers and Magico speakers are all starting to sound more and more alike because they're approaching perfection, right? No, they all sound wildly different from each other. So measurements, in other words, creating a more perfect measuring speaker, it's just not happening. It doesn't work that way. Speaker companies, and by the way, that's true for pro sound companies, pro sound speakers are not sounding more and more and more alike. They have their personalities because the people designing those speakers have different design goals. So the measurers, they have their goals. They have their biases as to what products should be doing and where they're going. And it's one of those, can't we all get along? Does it play music? Does it make you happy? These are the questions. These are the things that we should be concerned about. It's not a game of gotcha is what I'm saying. The people who do reviews, such as myself, need to understand that the buyers of audio products have different goals. Some people want systems that rock and roll. Some people want a boogie. Some people want to play it really, really loud. Some people want to play opera. You know, some are EDM. They're doing different things. And they will require different types of sound systems. Some people live in tiny New York City apartments. Some people live in vast barns. You know, they want and they need different types of systems. You know, when I asked Andrew Jones at a I think it was Rocky Mountain Audio Fest, we did an interview, and I said to him, do you design with an optimum listening distance from the speaker? Do you have that in mind? He never really answered that question, but that was one of the things I was really curious about, because there probably is an optimum listening distance. Maybe it's 8 feet, maybe it's 9 feet. I doubt it's 20 feet, you know. but he never really answered that question. But knowing that sort of information would be really, really useful, because then in terms of specs and numbers, yeah, I think that would actually help. But anyway, there's a number that I would find useful. Pardon me for a second. We'll do a quick side trip. I was talking to my friend Randy over at Cheap Audio Man, and the subject of measurements came up. We're talking about this video. And I was telling him about digital. That is, before I heard digital, I was expecting digital to have perfect sound. Flat frequency response, no speed issues whatsoever, no wow and flutter. Vastly better signal to noise ratio, no wear issues, no intergroove distortion, nothing. And that once I heard digital, why would I ever want to play a record ever again? Why would I ever want to play analog tape ever again? Because digital was perfect. And when I heard this perfect sound, digital, music would sound so much more realistic. It was freed from all the limitations of analog playback. It just had to be. We've been, held back by the limitations of analog forever since the days of Edison. And now all of those limitations were gone, and music would emerge from speakers sounding so much more realistic. But then when I finally heard music in a digital format, it didn't sound that much more realistic. It sounded slightly different, but I definitely would not say more real. No, not at all. As a matter of fact, here we are many, many, many decades later into the digital format wars. It still doesn't sound that much more real. It just doesn't. Matter of fact, I think analog still sounds more realistic, depending on the music, depending on the recording, etc., etc., etc. So even though digital is still objectively and measurement-wise the superior format, it doesn't sound more realistic to me and many other audiophiles. Not all audiophiles, but many other audiophiles. Point being that measurements alone do not predict end results of enjoyability and just, well, how people react to the sound of recorded music. So there you go. Another brick in the wall. So by the way, this t-shirt that I'm wearing is a Cartis t-shirt, but please don't take that as an endorsement or an ad or product placement. It is not. It just happens to be what I'm wearing. I wanted to knock out this video really fast. So I love Cartis. The people at Cartis, George Cartis, all the people there, and I like their cables, but this is not an ad for Cartis. Anyway, back to the video. As always, I'm interested in your opinions and your opinions on other YouTube channels that do measurements and websites and print magazines that are more measurement oriented, certainly than this channel, but that's not too hard. And do you find them useful, meaning other than for entertainment purposes, but I mean useful in terms of predicting what you would buy? That's the real bottom line. In other words, have you bought products based on how they measure, and did that somehow predict what you heard? That's what I want to hear about in the comments section. Let's say better than a subjective review predicting what you heard. That should fine-tune my question to you to refer to in the comments. I would appreciate your answers. And of course, be truthful. Yeah, of course. And now, let's get to, I haven't picked it yet, so I don't know what it is, but let's get to the Audiophiliac viewer system of the day. Today's system comes from Mike. His speakers are by Cube, that's the name of the company, and the model is Nenuphar. It's a crossoverless single driver design. I heard these when I went to visit Nelson Pass in California a few years ago. Very nice speaker. Anyway, speaking of Nelson, the amplifier is a first Watt SIT3. Preamp is a passive, it's called The Truth. Turntable is a VPI Classic 2. Cartridge, Soundsmith Paua Mkii 2. Phono stage is Sutherland 2020. DAC, Denafrips Venus 2. And for transport, he's using a Marantz CD player. Cables are by Triode Wire Labs and Morrow. Nice going, Mike. Thanks for that. Speaking of what's going on, yes, my name is Steve Guttenberg. This is the Audiophiliac Daily Show. If you like it, that is the Audiophiliac Daily Show. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already. And you might also want to check out, if you haven't already, the Patreon, which can be found at patreon.com/Audiophiliac.